You're listening to Supervision with a Vision, where we discuss all things supervision. I'm your host, Sarah, professional counselor, marriage and family therapist, play therapist, eating disorder specialist, and cookie lover, with my co-host, Heather, marriage and family therapist, certified Together in Texas counselor, a Texas transplant from California, and outdoor adventurer. Hi, welcome to Supervision with a Vision. Today, Heather and I are talking about getting creative and thinking outside the box in supervision. This week, we read Counseling Outside the Box, published in Counseling Today 2021. And Heather, the first idea in our article this week is walk the walk.
Right.
How do you walk the walk or encourage your supervisees to do that in supervision?
We really don't have a lot of space around my office for walking, but we do have a little creek that runs in the back.
Oh, fun.
So we go there sometimes just to reset, especially if a supervisee's had a week where maybe they've been inside a ton and they've been doing a lot. So it's a place to get outside and really just sit. There's a picnic table there. We might just have supervision right there. It might still be seated and there, but we've walked over there, we've talked, maybe we've come back around. But I think there's great benefit to adding physical activity to any process, really, therapy or supervision.
Yeah, I like that. I don't think it's a small thing to change your location. In substance abuse treatment, they talk a lot about changing your people, places, and things. And for the benefit of shaking things up, thinking about things differently, having new perspective, and maybe even just walking over to the picnic tables means having new perspective.
Just getting out and about. I think there's benefit too, just physically, to get up and move. Just to get up and making like an awareness, being mindful that, oh, I'm outside. Like breathe deeper.
Well, even, I mean, if then it lends itself towards thinking about interpersonal neurobiology and the bilateral movement while you're thinking about something. So walking while you're doing supervision means integrating what you're talking about on a different level, making more meaning of it.
I've encouraged my supervisees when they're working with their own clients to do things, especially if you're seeing younger kids or you maybe have a kid that has a lot of anxiety. I have a client of mine that I actually used to walk around the building that we were in just to walk. They processed better walking. Their anxiety was high enough. Sitting was not comfortable. But I encourage my supervisees to just figure it out. I used to play basketball with one of my day treatment kids just to get them like thinking about something else other than whatever the topic of the day was.
It's been a long time now. I used to work out of an office that had a playground.
It's great.
And the ideal playroom had a door that went directly to the playground. And if I could reserve that room, that meant that we could run around and do that. And there is so much happening in a game of hide and seek.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. That a kid that's age appropriate, or even a kid that's a little older than age appropriate for a game of hide and seek, gets so much out of a game like that relationship wise.
Right. It's really important.
I think even saying it out loud, walk the walk, I think also makes me think about a different dimension of supervision, that as supervisors, you and I are models.
Right.
So I think there's some value in you and I are both supervisors, and we also continue to see clients. That we're still engaged in that part of being a counselor at the same time, I think is beneficial.
It's really beneficial.
And we're also modeling lots of other things at the same time. How to have work-life balance. I think even like to growing as a professional, that I don't know, I encourage my supervisees to go and get the thing that they really want out of their CEU hours. If you've got to get CEU hours, you can gather up enough CEUs to meet the requirement each year, finding an hour or two here and there free,
lunch
with a lunch somewhere but it doesn't really mean that it strikes your interest or helps you grow or is meaningful to your clients. And so I encourage that too, and try and show my supervisees that I do that I'm going after new education, or if I am interested in a new credential, it's not because it checks the box, but because
it's going to help me grow.
Somehow is good for me, or it interests me or engages me. I'm also trying to think of maybe an activity example of walk the walk. Oh, I don't know. I think this one I've maybe described before. I can't remember. A mindful walk where you are aware of what's around you.
Okay.
And you're maybe like going through the alphabet find something that starts with A that you see, B, C, D. I would do that with a client. If I were walking, maybe higher level thinking, if I'm taking a walk with a supervisee, maybe we're looking for something that engages sense of sight, sense of touch, sense of smell.
I like it. A little deeper.
Harder, yeah. Okay. One of our other points made in the article is get creative using a movie date. How would you do that in supervision?
I think it's about the experience, right? So it's about a shared experience. I've read books with my supervisees before and then like shared what we got from it. And not just clinical books. I mean like fun
How
books.
do you do that? Like a book club?
Right. Kind of like a book. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, I already started this book. It's amazing. If you like the style of reading or writing, you should check it out.
Do you say, hey, let's this week reads chapter 1 and 2, or what do you set that out? Or
I think
casual?
I think in the couple times I've done it, I've been maybe a chapter or two ahead of where my supervisee, but it's fine. That worked out really well. Not so formal. Also done it with movie clips for like shows.
Yes.
Okay, so what do you think this character was thinking in this segment or whatever? Helps if you already have watched the same shows or already know the same movie or whatever. But I know that we use it in therapy a lot with different segments. So
I'm trying to think. They're like little independent films. But the Netflix movie To the Bone, and there's another one that's older, and now I've lost the title. I think it's A Crazy Story or Kind of a Funny Story.
Kind of a funny story.
And it's about a young adult who gets admitted to an inpatient unit.
Yes.
I've used both of those in sessions with clients, but I've also used snippets of them in supervision as well.
Right.
And To the Bone specifically, I have found helpful when working with supervisees who are working with clients with eating disorders so that we can discuss, is that what it's really like?
Right. Is that how it is?
Yeah, or what parts of that are so ridiculous? Or what parts of that have you maybe never encountered and now you're concerned or wondering, is that going to happen to me? So I think that can be helpful. Something that I encourage parents to do with younger kids, I think this is actually useful with any age kid. But if you're working on communication or expressing emotions, watch any movie.
Doesn't matter.
Well, any movie at all together. And you always have a little comment or discussion after you watch the movie.
Right.
But strike up a conversation with the intent of deeper meaning. So even if you're watching Little Mermaid with your 6-year-old, you say, oh, how would you have felt when...
that happened.
Right. When, I can't think of the crab's name right now. Sebastian. Well, how would you have felt if you were Sebastian and you realized that King Triton was going to be upset with you? How would you feel? I think I would feel.
Right.
And you're practicing talking about emotions, expressing emotions. You have something to relate to between each other. I think that's an easy way of doing a movie date with a client. Have you ever had a supervisee bring up a movie or a book and then it becomes part of supervision?
I think so, actually. Podcast recently. I was listening to a podcast and it came up with a topic that literally I talked about in supervision with my client with my supervisee recently. And I immediately was like, I finished listening. And then they immediately sent it to her and was like, hey, check this out. This is not just current for us, but current for
it's happening right now.
Bigger in the world than we really realize.
I listen to pretty regularly This American Life. I do that all the time.
Right.
Hello, This American Life. You should put us on your podcast.
Just so you know.
But I can think of a couple of episodes offhand right now that were discussed in supervision, and like you said, just either right after or right before, I went, "Oh my goodness, you've got to listen to this episode." I think there's one called "I'm Fat."
Okay.
Perfect combination with supervisees with eating disorders.
There's also a very new one out called Secrets.
I'll have to listen to it. I had another one. It's been a while now. I'm Fat is probably 1 or 2 years old already. There was another one focusing on the Mormon culture. And I had a supervisee that had a lot of clients within the LDS church.
So you're like, hey.
And I went, and actually it was great because I brought it to her and said, how do you connect to this? I want to learn from you. So there was many layers of supervision happening at that moment that I was showing her that I'm continually learning while she's continually learning. So it was really useful.
I think media is a really good tool if it's used the right way.
Okay, another way of getting creative in supervision is choose your own adventure. Do you remember those books?
Yes, I love those books.
Me
There's
too.
a few floating around my house still. And I loved them so much that I would reread them with I would redo it a different
You'd
way.
create your own, choose your own adventure?
No, like I would, yes, I guess that's the way, yeah. I loved writing stories. So I think that was like, I'd take this and spur it off a different way.
Yeah. How can you use that idea in supervision?
I use it a couple ways, actually. One way I use it is, okay, but if I was cognitive behavioral,
Me too.
what would I
do?
do?
That.
Like,
yeah.
what if I wanted to see it this way? Or I sometimes turn the tables and go, after they've told me what they did in session or what their plan was,
Right.
okay, but how would it be if mom ends up in session with you? Like, you all of a sudden have a parent that wants to be part of session like mix it up a little bit. One, to talk about you never, ever can be 100% sure that your session is going to go how you think.
Right.
Or also, maybe you have this idea and it's all planned out for what you want to do with your client and they just come in a bad mood.
Yes.
And you're not going to...
Yeah, the second you think you know what's going to happen,
Right.
you're in trouble.
Don't ever think that you have a perfect plan.
I like that. The way that I do it is when I'm conceptualizing with a client, with a supervisee. And I really like to do it with a group of supervisees. If we're doing group supervision, that maybe we're case conceptualizing one client and I say, okay, everybody pick a theory.
Right.
I'm not going to pick,
tell me.
and you tell me then from that theory, how would that counselor conceptualize what's happening with this client? And then because sometimes that's enough discussion that there's plenty to discuss right there. But then I really like to role play that.
Oh, yeah. That's great.
That I'll be the client and the supervisee is the counselor from whatever perspective. Right. And I say, I know that you're conceptualizing it this way, but what does it look like on the outside? What would you actually do?
Right. What are you doing with your words? What are your actual words you're going to say to the client? Not just
another
what you think.
layer of understanding. And I like that a lot of times they're conceptualizing it from that theory, but what they do on the outside really doesn't look that different from each different perspective, but they're thinking about it. So down the road, their next step might be different. Yeah, so choose your own adventure. Any other ways that you think
I
that
sometimes
you do that as a
do
supervision?
but what if? Like they might tell me about a client and tell me what their plan is, and then I call it dropping the bomb. But what if your client's like that because they've had a huge loss that you don't know about? Or what if they have self-harm that they haven't shared with you? Or how else do other things impact what you're about to do? Because I think it's important to have that cognition of you don't just know you don't have the whole story. As much as you think you might, you probably don't have the whole story. So what if mom's an alcoholic and being parentified actually serves a great purpose in that family role and it's works for their family. So you disrupting that and saying you just need to be a kid is not helpful.
Yeah. I think when I'm leading groups, I do this for myself, but then I'm also trying to get my supervisees to think the same way. Like you're saying, yeah, but what if? That you go into a group and you think, I love thinking up group ideas.
Yeah.
And that I go into a group and I think I've thought up the world's greatest way of teaching mindfulness or it's just the most mind expanding way of doing mindfulness. And I start out and the group of clients that I've got, it just falls flat.
Oh, yeah. Like it doesn't.
And like, that man,
Right.
I didn't say it. Like you almost think like, did you hear me? I don't think you heard me because you're just
it was a
hearing
great idea.
Yeah. What then?
What do you do then?
What do you do
How
then?
do you tap dance?
So when I lead groups, I always have probably like 2 to 3 plans. I start out with the one that I think is amazing, and then I have if we zip through that
You need time filler.
in 10 minutes,
Right.
what's going to make sense? Or maybe I present it and they just look at me like, Sarah, that was the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Right. Or we talked about that last week. We don't want to talk about that again.
Right. How am I going to pivot and do something different? So I do that, but I think I try and get my supervisees to think that way too. Okay, here's option number 1. What's another cool way of explaining the same thing? Or what's another cool way of giving the same example and making it practical? Okay, last idea, creativity and supervision, eat it up. Incorporating food
into your supervision. I have not done that in a formal way. I have colleagues that I like to go to lunch with, and we definitely are talking shop. It's definitely that kind of thing, but it doesn't necessarily...
What do you think? I have an opinion. I wonder what you think. What difference does it create, or what different level of interaction, communication happens when you're doing supervision and you happen to be eating?
Right. Like the level of, I think there is a different level of connection.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's much more, a little bit of it's letting your guard down.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of it is almost like a connectiveness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like in our culture, especially, we like tend to celebrate things by eating or grabbing a drink with a friend or what, I mean, things like that are what we like, a marker of like,
Mm-hmm.
hooray,
Mm-hmm.
we did
Mm-hmm.
it or whatever. But I think it's also, sometimes that's, for me, like, and my supervisees coming in, I'm like, oh, good, it's my supervisee. I can quickly, I get a moment. I don't have to be quite so professional with my,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
hang on, I'm going to eat these
Cautious.
crackers. But I think it's important. I think
Yeah.
it's something I definitely would probably, I'd be curious on how else to incorporate it into
Yeah.
supervision.
While you're talking, I'm thinking about ways that I've had a deeper interaction or a different kind of interaction with supervisees in the past. And sometimes it has to do with food. I had at one point a supervisee that brought her baby to supervision for, I don't know if it was quite a full year. Maybe it was 9 months.
Right.
But we went from tiny baby in a
little
carrier.
Right.
To when we finally stopped, it was really getting to the point where it was not a good idea to have her in the session because she was big enough that she was walking.
Oh, yeah. Pulling up on things and
Yes.
trying to, yep.
So like she pulled the coat rack down on herself,
Oh.
and we were lucky she didn't get hurt. And there are some other things like that, but the level of connection that created.
Right. I think it's important.
Yeah, I don't think I appreciated the level of interaction that gave us until much later.
I agree.
Yeah.
Like at the time, it probably was like what we need to do to make
Right,
supervision
this is what we're
happen.
doing.
Right.
It's making it functional.
Right.
But then probably like when she had her second birthday, then it was like, oh, wow. Yeah, this is a connection that we have that we'll always have. I think the same thing is true about food. When you share food or interact around food, something specific that I use, it's really probably mostly relatable to clients or counselors that are working with eating disorders. I'll do some supervision around supporting, redirecting, making a meal or a snack a therapeutic hour.
Oh, yeah.
And in doing that in supervision, it's really practical.
It's a skill building.
You really can't quite grasp that until you're actually doing it and
Right.
seeing it. Like I can talk through it, but it means something different when we're actually practicing it. I think, what about with intention, the sharing food?
Yeah.
Like maybe if you're doing a group, like every time we meet as a group, we're going to rotate who brings a little snack. And it becomes the community sharing.
Right. I think in so many other groups that aren't therapy based at all, like I think of my daughter and I have done NCL and Girl Scouts and all things along the way. That is built into their system already. And it is building community, probably not even intentionally, but we just have a bunch of hungry kids we need to feed.
Yeah.
But I think it does. Oh, I love it when she did, because she's going to bake and she's going to bring brownies, or, oh yeah, her mom will buy the good soda, or whatever it is. I think those are things that do connect kiddos. And so I think it's like a cultural stance that we have, that like if you're meeting for more than an hour as a group, there's going to be something. I mean, think of it, we go to CEs and there's usually free lunch.
Yeah, sure. I'm thinking of, there's an organization across town, which you probably know of. Maybe you don't. We'll share later. And they work with families, and they offer, it's such a nice, convenient way of providing support to that community, that it's all after work hours. And all in the same couple of hours, they have something provided for different age groups, including parents. And the conclusion of the evening is a potluck meal.
Nice.
And thinking about having been involved or been aware of them, it was convenient.
Right.
That they knew families were probably coming straight from work to there and doing things for an hour or two, and then they needed to eat before it was too late. So that was functional, but it created a system of support.
Right.
It created community.
It was one night a week for those parents that didn't have to think about a meal.
I remember I was a program director of an organization that provided support to, similar to the one I was just describing, but a little bit different. And when I started, they just had really inconsistent low attendance. And one of the things that I did, there were support groups available, and it was alternating. So it wasn't the same Monday through Friday, but they had different groups available every day of the week at lunchtime, at like noon. And it was meant that somebody who was working could like kind of pop in during their lunch hour and pop back out. And we started didn't change the schedule. We hardly changed anything.
Right.
But what we did change was that the group met in a different room, and the expectation was that you could show up a little bit early and bring your lunch.
And it kind of just...
Right. And we would sit down and everybody would eat, and if we needed to, we'd eat throughout the group. There was no,
no rules about it, or
attendance instantly increased.
Because it's something now I can do. I don't have to sit in my car and eat and then decide that I only had 20 minutes. I'm not going to go to that meeting anyway.
It felt like community and sharing. They maybe were a little bit sharing food, but that wasn't the intent. The intent was just, we're here together and we're doing something together.
Yep. Yeah. I like it.
I'm going to think about how I can incorporate that more, especially considering working with people who have eating disorders, how we can make that a part of something that's social and supportive.
Right.
Yeah. Thanks, Heather. Today we talked about getting creative within supervision and all of the different ways that we can incorporate different activities in our practice.
Yep.
Thanks today for listening to Supervision with a Vision.
You've been listening to Supervision with a Vision. Head on over to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at Therapy Academy to join the conversation and get show notes. We'll be back next week with more Supervision with a Vision.